Hey guys, it's Mo, and here with a quick Delphi update. I know that Andrea Burkhart and Defense Diaries and Lawyer Lee are doing awesome, possum, great jobs, keeping us up to date. But I did want to bring to you guys the accused second motion to admit evidence of Odinism, Norse paganism, ritualistic killings, and also motion to admit evidence concerning Elvis Fields and Brad Holder as third-party subjects or suspects, sorry. So if you guys remember or have been paying attention to this case, you know that the defense released kind of a bombshell Frank's motion that kind of introduced all of us to Odinism and the concept that maybe there was more going on in the murders of Abby and Libby than what was being led up or implied by the state. And if you guys would like to check out that Frank's motion, because I know it was very dense, it was like 138 pages, if I remember correctly. I do have about 5 streams where I go over the Frank's memo. So I do have those in my Delphi playlist, but it will definitely give you some eye-opening facts. And Brad Holder and Elvis Fields are mentioned quite heavily in that motion. Now, basically, the defense theory of this case is that this crime was done by multiple people and it has pagan Norse underpinnings, or at least the positioning of the body, the covering, not really covering, but placement of limbs and things uh, are very reminiscent of a pagan Norse sort of ritual in the defense's eyes. Now, Judge Gohl completely eliminated this as being a possibility of even being brought up in motions in limine, but the defense believes that the state has opened the door to some of this coming in, and this is the document that goes through that. So comes now Richard Allen by and through counsel moves this court to admit certain evidence that this court thus far prevented the defense from presenting to the jury pursuant to its September 4th, 2024 order, granting the state of Indiana's April 29th, 2024 motion in limine. In support of said motion, the defense states the following. Number one, on October 23rd, 2024, the defense has previously filed his first quote motion to admit evidence of Odinism, Norse paganism, and ritualistic killing. Two, since that motion was filed, additional evidence has been elicited through testimony and other evidence that further open the door to the admission of Odinism, Norse paganism, or ritualistic killing. Three, also since that October 23rd, 2024 motion was filed, additional evidence has been elicited through testimony and other evidence that opened the door for the defense to bring in evidence that third-party suspects, Elvis Fields and Brad Holder, were involved in the killing of the victims. Additional evidence admitted during trial that supports the introduction of Odinism, Norse paganism, ritualistic killing evidence. 4. On Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024, forensic pathologist Kaur testified that A, possibly 2, possibly 3, possibly 4 instruments were used to cut the necks of Abigail William and Liberty German. B, that in his autopsy report, Dr. Kaur believes that some cuts may have involved the use of a non-serrated instrument, while other cuts may have involved the use of a, you know, non-serrated instrument, providing the possibility that more than one person was involved in the murders. C. During his testimony, Dr. Kaur backtracked somewhat, but still did not exclude the possibility that injuries to Abigail Williams and Liberty German were caused by both a serrated and non-serrated instrument. 5. Also, since the trial began, the prosecution admitted certain crime scene photographs into evidence, including photographs of the crime scene in which the sticks on the girls were clearly visible to the jury, allowing the defense to ask questions concerning the sticks on the girls. 6. As any competent trial lawyer would ask a variety of questions concerning the unusual way that the sticks were placed on the victims, and it would be ineffective for the trial lawyer to not ask questions concerning the sticks placed on the victims. So, again, if you have been following this case, there are allegations by the defense, and it looks like they're going to have an expert in maybe pagan religions and Norse pagan religions and rituals come up to try to explain that some of these do resemble runes. Having watched Scuttlebutt on all the other channels that are covering this, people say that the girls were laid out like Odin and Freya, so it or even, possibly, interpret it as looking like, tarot cards. So, this is sort of a bombshell, a very big thing that you want the jury to try to buy. So they need to have a lot of information and things that can back this up, because if not, it can very well look like they're throwing spaghetti and, Odin at the wall and trying to see what sticks to get Richard Allen out of jail. Now, I will say if you go through the entire Frank's memo, you don't have to watch my videos about it. You can read it yourself. I believe it is publicly available now. Uh, there's a lot of questions that are raised by that document, and all of the information they discuss was pulled from the state's discovery. Number 8, Dr. Kaur's testimony, or I'm sorry, number 7, on Saturday, October 25th, 2024, Lieutenant Jerry Holman from the Indiana State Police testified to the following. A, on cross-examination, Lieutenant Holman testified that it was his belief that the sticks and branches found on the girls were used by the killer to conceal the bodies. B, on redirect, Prosecutor McClelland asked Lieutenant Holman if another reason that the sticks or branches were found on the girls was that the killer was doing something called undoing. Lieutenant Holman responded, yes. Sorry about that. I had to adjust my little leg stool I have down there because it is rainy and gross outside, and my leg no likey. Now, undoing, if you're unfamiliar, is a sort of behavioral think, mind hunters kind of thing. So this is a term to include kind of an undoing of the death where you don't want you can't stand the murder victim being in an undignified or, disrespectful sort of pose. Now, that would include sometimes closing the mouth or the eyes. The problem with this is that, unfortunately, and I have not seen the crime scene photos, nor do I ever want to see the crime scene photos. I saw the, artistic renderings of them, and that was still incredibly difficult. So, what I will say is that Liberty German was left nude. Both of the girls had their eyes open and their mouths open. So, if these sticks were placed in sort of an undoing way, that doesn't quite make sense given that the eyes weren't closed and the mouths weren't closed, and Liberty was left without clothing. Now, the concealment angle is also a little weird as well because these were not, a pile of sticks. These were fairly slender sticks arranged on the girls in what appears to be a very deliberate way, in my view. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a cop, I'm a mom who likes looking at true crime. Now, so all of this doesn't quite make sense because, as Andrea Burkhart has pointed out, and then a lot of other people that have followed this, if you wanted to conceal the girl, there's plenty of dead leaf detritus. There are bigger branches. There's, bushes and other things that you can cover the girls with if you wanted to. These sticks did not accomplish that. Number 8, throughout Dr. Kaur's testimony, it was determined that it was feasible that multiple people using multiple implements or knives, supporting the defense theory that the Odinist Norse pagans were involved in the murders. Number 9, as Dr. Perlmutter testified on August 1st, 2024, knives are a classic sign of Odinist Norse paganism culture, and that knives are classically used in ritualistic killings. 10. Dr. Kaur's testimony revealed that perhaps as many as four knives were used, and at least one of those knives had been serrated, supporting the defense's belief that multiple Norse paganist Odinists using multiple knives were involved in the murders. 11. Furthermore, upon reviewing crime scene photographs that have been admitted into evidence, there are no obvious drag marks to the naked eye, nor were there any police reports or charts that showed drag marks at the crime scene. Even spatter expert Pat Cicero admitted that he could observe no drag marks on the crime scene photographs that he reviewed. Now, I'm going to try to put this as delicately as possible, but this is what he's trying to point out here. Both of the girls were not theorized, and based on the evidence, it looks like both of the girls lost their lives a short distance away from where they were then finally posed or placed. Now, Liberty was, kind of built like me, a bit stockier when I was a kiddo, uh, you know, and I know she was into athletics and things like that, so this is not a body shaming thing in any way, but she weighed about 200 pounds. Now, this is important because you have to take in, 5'4" Richard Allen, who was, I think, 220 pounds, being able to lift this young lady from the place that he unalived her and, basically deadlift carry her, as a dead weight to where he eventually placed her. Now, while it's not impossible, it does bring up questions. It is reasonable doubt. It does, lead you to think, how did one person do this? 12. The fact that there is no evidence of drag marks support that more than one person was involved in the murders, including two or more people needed to lift Liberty German's body, explaining why there were no drag marks from where she was killed to where she was ultimately found, supporting the possibility that multiple Norse paganists or Odinists were present and participating in the murders. 13. As it relates to Lieutenant Holman's testimony, when Lieutenant Holman answered yes, when asked if another theory as to why the sticks were on the body was because of something called undoing, his testimony is yet another reason provided by the state of Indiana as to why the sticks are on the girls. 14. Questioning of the prosecution and the answer of Lieutenant Holman pertain to yet another explanation of an quote unquote undoing as to why the sticks were found on the girls, and therefore the prosecution opened the door to the defense's alternative theory as to why the sticks were found on the girls. The defense has its own theory as to why the sticks are on the girls, and Richard Allen has a Sixth Amendment right to provide that theory to rebut the state of Indiana's theories, including the prosecution's latest theory that the sticks were relating to a quote unquote undoing. 16. Additionally, blood spatter expert Pat Cicero opined and or the prosecution led the jury to believe through the questioning that Liberty German was moved to her final resting place to conceal the body. 17. The prosecution's line of questioning of Cicero was pursued by the prosecution on direct examination and opened the door to the defense offering alternative theories as to why the body was placed in its final resting place and why the stakes were placed on the girls. The defense theory is that Liberty German's and Abigail Williams' final resting place was related to Norse paganism / Odinism and a ritualistic killing. 18. Richard Allen has a Sixth Amendment right to present its own theory of why the victim's body was placed in its final resting place and why the sticks / branches were placed on her body. 19. The defense believes that both Liberty and Abigail's bodies were placed there because of a desire of the Odinists to post the body and form sticks on the body in an arrangement for reasons only understood by the person or people that murdered the victims. Dr. Perlmutter has testified as to how the sticks would have only meaning to the people who were involved in the murders. 20. Additionally, the defense expert, Dr. Don Perlmutter, indicated on August, or in the August 1st, 2024 hearing that the arrangements of sticks was not an undoing, as an undoing is typically an attempt by the killer or killers to provide dignity to the victim. Hallmarks of an undoing might be closing the eyes and mouth of a victim. In this case, the girls' mouths and eyes were open, and one victim was displayed naked in an undignified manner. This would be inconsistent with an undoing. The defense should have the opportunity to explain what it believes is an undoing and how the crime scene does not exhibit an undoing. Evidence introduced before and during trial that supports the introduction of third party suspects Elvis Field and Brad Holder. 21. On October 25th, 2024, Lieutenant Holdman was asked a question about how many people were involved in the murders of the victims. 22. Lieutenant Holdman offered that only one person was involved in the murders. 23. After offering that only one person was involved in the murders, Lieutenant Holdman offered the following as part of his reasoning for believing that only one person was involved in the murders is that based on his training and experience, when more than one person is involved in a crime, there is often a point of time in which one participant will discuss the crime or reveal the crime, whereas when it's only one person, it is much easier to contain the secret. That was Lieutenant Holman's theory that supported his belief that only one person committed the murders. 24. Since September 18th, 2023, the defense has consistently maintained that evidence supports that Elvis Fields was a participant in the murders along with Brad Holder and others. 25. According to Lieutenant Holman's theory, as testified to under oath on October 25th, 2024, if it is true that Elvis Fields and Brad Holder were both involved in the murders, then it is likely that one of them will have admitted to being involved in the murders or providing incriminating statements concerning being in the murders. 26. Evidence exists that supports the defense contention that multiple people were involved in the murders and also supports Lieutenant Holman's theory that if multiple people were involved in a crime, that at least one of them will reveal the crime to others. 27. For example, blood spatter expert Pat Cicero testified that it is possible that both girls were killed at the same time, which would indicate that more than one person was involved in the crime. 28. Additionally, Pat Cicero also admitted that one explanation for Abby having no blood on her hands is that while her neck was being cut, someone held her hands down. And I know this, you guys, is not the easiest stuff to read. If you need to take a break, if you need to turn off this video, protect your mental health. This is, just a horrifying case on many levels. So if you need to take a break and, watch a puppy video, I understand. 29. Law enforcement conducting investigation into the murders have interviewed one suspect, Fields, who asked inculpating, so actually, questions that would more likely lead you to believe, or statements more likely to lead you to believe that this person is guilty rather than exculpatory, which would lead you to reason that this person is innocent. So this man may be giving out some terrible, terrible things that are more, prejudicial and, rely to get more probative information. This man was singing like a canary, is what they're saying. Who asked inculpating questions to a state trooper, and B has connections to those who have incriminating evidence on their social media, as well as a direct connection to one of the victims. 30. Therefore, evidence exists that multiple people were involved in the murder, rendering all purported alibis as suspect due to the ability for the ringleader to claim an alibi while others are doing his bidding in terms of abducting the victims. 31. Brad Holder's first alibi, for example, would allow him to be in Delphi no later than 2:30 p.m., perhaps earlier, while Elvis Fields and others abducted the victims and held them awaiting Holder. 32. In 2018, law enforcement pulled Elvis Fields in for questioning to the Rushville Police Department, and at the end of the interview, took Elvis's DNA, then explained to Elvis their reason for taking his DNA. 30. At the conclusion of the interview, Trooper Kevin Murphy drove Elvis back to his home. 34. After Trooper Murphy dropped Elvis off at Elvis's home, Elvis walked towards his home, then turned around and approached Kevin Murphy's car. After getting close to Trooper Murphy's vehicle, Elvis asked the trooper, "If I spit on one of the girls, but I have an explanation for it, would I still be in trouble?" 35. DNA analyst Stacy Bonvitsky, or Bonozavitsky, look, I'm terrible with names, testified at the end of her cross-examination on October 28, 2024, that a person's spit can't be analyzed for DNA. 36. Additionally, evidence exists that supports that Elvis Field was mimicking Brad Holder, who lived 125 plus miles away, uh, and should have no ties to Elvis Field's Facebook post, or that Brad Holder was mimicking Elvis Field's Facebook post months before the victims were abducted. 37. Elvis Field has claimed under oath that Brad Holder was actually mimicking Facebook posts that Elvis Fields had posted. 38. Brad Holder's son Logan was dating Abby Williams, and Brad Holder had evidence that it exhibited Holder's knowledge of the crime scene on his social media that no one else should know. Meanwhile, 125 miles away, Elvis Fields, who seemingly would have had no reason to know Brad Holder even existed, A, followed Brad Holder on Facebook, mimicked his post, or vice versa, and B, was making statements that could inculpate him as to being involved in the murders, including speculation on the possibility that Elvis's spit, might be found on the girls. However, this would not be surprising based on Lieutenant Holman's October 26, 2024 testimony that when multiple people are involved in a crime, someone will ultimately reveal the crime. 39. Additionally, evidence from Brad Holder's social media supported the concept that others assisted him in committing the murders and moving the bodies, as Holder posted a meme on his Facebook page a few days after the girls were murdered, and the theme and words from the meme have become more important due to testimony that has been elicited during the trial. 40. According to blood spatter expert Pat Cicero, Liberty German's 200-pound body was in fact moved from one location to another. 44. Also pursuant to blood spatter expert Pat Cicero, there were no drag marks that could be seen on crime scene photos. 42. Therefore, evidence supports that Libby's body was moved from one location to another, and that two or more people would have been needed to carry the body, since no drag marks existed. Certainly, it would have been highly unlikely that one man alone could accomplish this task. 43. Quote, your real ones, or I'm sorry, 43. On February 17th, 2017, 3 days after the murder, Brad Holder posted these words on his Facebook page, quote, your real ones don't judge you or ask a bunch of questions. They help you move the body and never speak of it again, end quote. Emphasis added. 44. The fact that Brad Holder had content on his social media that mimics the crime scene, unknown to the public at the time, and additionally that he posted words concerning how real friends would help him move a body, supports the theory that Brad Holder and others were involved in the murder. The fact that Brad Holder has told multiple stories about whether he ever met Abby Williams, ranging from he never met her, to he met her one time, to he met her 2 times, along with all the other evidence provided in the Franks memo, supports that third-party suspect evidence should be made admissible. 44. Additionally, the evidence previously provided to this court in the Franks memo, as well as admitted into evidence on August 1st, 2024, provided proof that Elvis Fields did not have an alibi that could be sustained, but quite the opposite. Elvis Fields' alibi is as sketchy as his versions of his whereabouts on February 13th, 2017, and runs counter to those who allegedly were with him on that day. In other words, no one could keep their stories straight about Elvis's whereabouts on February 13th, 2017. Lieutenant Holman's October 26, 2024 testimony leaves the jury under the mistaken belief that no evidence exists that multiple persons were involved in the murder and that no other suspects have made any statements that inculpate them in the crimes, thus supporting Lieutenant Holman's theory that when multiple people are involved in a crime, at least one of them will ultimately reveal the crime. 47. At the time of his October 26, 2024 testimony, Lieutenant Holman was fully aware that evidence existed that Elvis Fields made inculpatory statements concerning being present at the scene at the time of the victims being murdered. 48. At the time of his October 26, 2024 testimony, Lieutenant Holman was fully aware that evidence existed that Elvis Fields of Rushville, Indiana, had a connection with Brad Holder from Logansport, Indiana, and in fact said evidence produced from the law enforcement investigation showed that Brad Holder and Elvis Fields were mimicking one another on Facebook. 49. At the time of his October 26, 2024 testimony, Lieutenant Holman was fully aware that evidence existed that Brad Holder's son, Logan, dated Abby Williams. At the time, or 50, at the time of his October 26, 2024 testimony, Lieutenant Holman was fully aware that Brad Holder had evidence on his social media consistent with signatures left behind at the crime scene, including a mimicked crime scene photograph that looked eerily similar to the way the bodies were posed on the ground of the woods, and photographs of sticks laid down on the ground in a similar pattern of sticks uh, similar to the pattern of sticks found on Abby's body in the form of a hand drawn pattern on the wrist of Brad Holder, among other incriminating items, including a post about, quote, real friends helping move bodies. 51. At the time of his testimony, Lieutenant Holman was aware that Odinist Norse paganists had been investigated as being involved in the murders. 52. At the time of his testimony, Lieutenant Holman was aware that both Brad Holder and Elvis Fields possessed knives, and that Brad Holder used knives as part of his Odinism religion. 53. At the time of his testimony, Lieutenant Holman was aware or should have been aware that Brad Holder possessed a .40 caliber gun. 54. At the time of his testimony, Lieutenant Holman was aware or should have been aware that Brad Holder's .40 caliber handgun was never collected, tested, or compared to the bullet allegedly found at the crime scene. 55. Therefore, the jury has been misled into believing that law enforcement's only available evidence only supports that only one person was involved in the crime, when Lieutenant Holman's own words on the stand, evidence from the law enforcement investigation, and trial testimony from Dr. Kaur, Pat Cicero, and Lieutenant Holman would support the defense theory that multiple people were involved in the crimes. This is true because Elvis Fields has provided inculpatory statements and had a social media connection with Brad Holder, and Lieutenant Holman has indicated that when multiple people are involved in a crime, it is his experience that one of the participants will ultimately reveal the secret of the crime. It is also true because a substantial amount of evidence supports that Brad Holder's social media contained words and images that are consistent with the crime scene and also consistent with creating or showcasing an alibi at 2 a.m. on February 14th, 2017, when for the only time in his life he claimed in a Facebook post that he was at a gym, as Holder stated under oath in deposition. Holder's social media is also consistent with others being involved and assisting him in moving the bodies. 56. Richard Allen possesses a Sixth Amendment right to rebut Lieutenant Holman's theory that one man and only one man was involved in these murders, especially when Lieutenant Holman's reasoning for believing that only one man was involved in the murders is debunked by the evidence detailed herein, including Elvis Fields' inculpatory statement that supports Lieutenant Holman's belief that when multiple people are involved in a crime, ultimately one person will reveal the commission of the crime. 57. Additionally, as previously detailed, Richard Allen possesses a Sixth Amendment right to present evidence that those involved in Norse paganism or Odinism are involved in the murders and posed the girls and placed the sticks on the girls in certain arrangements for reasons that are very personal to the people that committed the crimes. 58. Defendant files this motion currently in part for purposes of a ruling in anticipation of the need to contact our witnesses if the court reverses its ruling. Respectfully submitted, Andrew Baldwin, Bradley Rossi, and Jennifer Auger. So that is what the defense just resubmitted. Hopefully, Judge Gold will actually read this, look at the evidence that's been presented in trial, and, make the right choice. I'm not going to hold my breath that that's actually going to happen because I have severe doubts that Judge Gold isn't just going to look at this and rule denied. But this gives you more of an idea of sort of what the defense team has been looking at this entire trial, what they have been investigating, how they are looking at certain things, and how they are trying to marry the fact that the state is pushing a one man, you know, solution at being the only solution to this particular case. And what the defense has really dug into and really found connections and different things looking through the state's discovery. So I hope that I have given you some information that I am sure you could find elsewhere. So I appreciate you coming over to me to look at it. And if you would like to learn about the Franks motion, I do recommend that you either read it yourself or if you don't have time because it is rather dense, to go look at the grouping of videos. I believe it is at least 5 or 6 where I go over the entire Franks motion. Uh, if you would like to learn more about that, because it is a rather big pill to swallow. I will not lie, when I first heard Odinist and paganism and all this other stuff, I was wondering what the defense was thinking. But that Frank's motion really lays it all out, and I encourage you to go look at it. I hope you have a wonderful day and thank you for stopping by. Please click the like and subscribe button, all the YouTubey things, and I will see you in at another time. Have a great day. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. And, just try to make the world a little bit of a better place because unfortunately we all have to deal with stories like this. Bye, you guys. Have a great day.